Bayelsa State imposes curfew to curb COVID-19 variant. VP dismisses rumors of interest in higher political office, says he has no plan to run for president in 2023. In international news, Israel continues bombing offensive in Gaza. Death toll rises above 200. And in sport, NTTF National Championships begin today.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. COVID-19 infections in the country increased by 69 on Monday, pushing the total tally to 165,778. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control says Ondo led the pack of 4 states by posting 35 new cases, followed by Lagos with 30. Rivers recorded 3, while the Federal Capital Territory is credited with 1 new case. No new fatality was recorded, leaving the total death toll at 2,067. 156,415 patients have recovered and have been discharged across the country. Meanwhile, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency has reported 1.8 million Nigerians have been vaccinated against the deadly coronavirus as of Monday. The Bayelsa State government says it has imposed curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. since Sunday in the states to control the spread of COVID-19 new variants. The state's Commissioner for Information, Chief Ayibene Duba, announced the decision on Monday. Duba said relevant security agencies have been mobilized to enforce the curfew. He said movements within and out of the state through the major entry points, including Bayelsa Delta State's boundary and Bayelsa River State's boundary at Mbiama, are prohibited during the hours of the curfew. Kaduna Governor Nasir El-Rufai has declared the chairman of Nigeria Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, and other members of the union headquarters wanted. The governor said in a tweet on Tuesday, Waba and his team are wanted for economic sabotage and attend public infrastructure under the Miscellaneous Offences Act. The governor has promised what he calls a handsome reward for anyone who knows his whereabouts and turns him by sending a message to the Ministry of Justice in Kaduna. The NLC chairman Ayuba Waba had led members of the union in a protest in Kaduna on Monday against the government's decision to sack 4,000 workers from all local government areas of the state. The government says it has to do this to rein in a balloon wage bill, among other reasons. Labour was opposed to the move, so it's decided to ground activities in the states by starting a 5-day warning strike that began on Sunday. Workers in just about every sector joined in the strike that has left most of the states paralyzed. Even electricity workers are also on strike, plunging the states into darkness. El-Rufai has also declared as wanted former chairman of the Nigerian National Human Rights Commission, Chris Odikalu, for incitement and injurious falsehood over a tweet on Monday. The governor remains adamant that nothing, not even strikes, can cause it to change course and scuttle its plans to right size. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has sneered at a support group working to draft him for a 2023 presidential run. The professor says he's not interested and that the move is basically a distraction from his present job. He says he's focused on doing the best job as vice president. Vice presidential media aide Laolu Akode has dismissed rumors that Osinbajo was interested in a higher political office. Akode says the vice president has debunked those rumors as untrue and has declared no interest in a presidential race. Akode has asked Nigerians to stop what he calls unhelpful permutations. He said instead, everyone should work together to deal with and resolve the challenges currently facing the nation. Quote, for the benefit of our people, peace and prosperity in the land, end quote.
Coming up, African stories. South African aviation industry in financial distress amid COVID-19 cries out for financial help. And later, international news. Israel continues bombing offensive in Gaza. Death toll rises above 200.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The second batch of emergency humanitarian aid from Morocco to the Palestinians in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip arrived on Sunday for transfer at Amman Airport in Jordan. Morocco's King Mohammed VI said the aid was being dispatched to Palestinians on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, African Cooperation, and Moroccans residing abroad. The 40-ton humanitarian aid consists of basic food products, emergency medicine, and blankets. The Moroccan Foreign Ministry has denounced in a statement the violence in the occupied Palestinian territories. At least 212 persons, including 61 children, have been killed in Gaza since the latest violence began more than a week ago. Some 1,500 Palestinians were wounded. Israel has reported 10 deaths, including 2 children, from rocket attacks launched by militant Palestinian groups in the past week. The COVID-19 has had devastating effect on many businesses sectors around the world, especially in Africa, where the telling effects are very visible. The South African aviation industry has suffered greatly during the COVID-19 and is now crying out for financial support to stay afloat in these trying times. Correspondent Sumitra Ndu has that story.
African aviation is still struggling from the impacts of COVID. 8 regional airlines filed for bankruptcy in 2020. More may be forced to do the same as air travel remains limited. The Airlines Association of Southern Africa is pleading with governments across the region to assist or risk losing this vital mode of transportation.
The imposition of those travel restrictions, and this is obviously impacting economic recovery, jobs and livelihood as well, in which pose a threat to the social stability, peace and security of the region. So and it's so critical for us to have an efficient air transport system, and it's vital to any aspiring economy, particularly in Africa, where we've got large distances and between centres.
The organisation says apart from limited passenger traffic, airlines still need to service their debt for aircraft financing, pay insurance, salaries and office rentals.
What we've requested is certain ways in which this could be done is through instruments such as interest-free or low-interest loans, grants, subsidies, tax holidays, deferment of taxes and exemptions if we've applied for a deferment of carbon taxes in South Africa, and the withdrawal or the reduction of charges and levies on air transport.
Governments are working together with the aviation industry towards improving travel with COVID passports, as well as efficient testing and screening.
Travel and tourism is expected to recover as more countries roll out vaccines. However, with new variants emerging and a third wave still a concern, it may take a little longer.
Before the pandemic, aviation contributed 7.7 million jobs in Africa, as well as contributed to about $63 billion in African GDP. Since the pandemic struck, our analysis is showing that about 5 million jobs are now at risk, probably not going to get back to 2019 levels until sometime in 2022 or 2023.
Efforts to mobilize $30 billion pledged by local and international agencies are underway.
So the total amount is that 30 billion that we're looking at. Now, we're trying right now with the African Union to see how we can start to mobilize the funds, because these funds are available through different mechanisms.
While there's been a slight improvement in travel numbers since last year this time, it's nowhere close to pre-pandemic levels.
Apart from COVID-19's negative economic effect on nations, there are social blights the disease has brought to many countries. One of such is in Zimbabwe, where the society is tackling increased drug abuse. Local initiatives are set to help the country cope.
Zimbabwe is slowly getting back on its feet after an eased lockdown. But they have something else to worry about. A haunting trail of drug abuse. 40-year-old Tabeth Moyera is a recovering addict.
I started drug abuse when I was just 16 years old. As a result of that, I ended up taking part in commercial sex work. From the money I got, I would channel it towards buying more drugs and alcohol. With an addiction once high, I would also end up being violent.
The Zimbabwe Civil Liberties and Drug Network, founded in 2011, has been at the forefront in helping battle substance abuse. The network has several community support groups and is active in 5 provinces.
We have been also providing a lot of information to the communities through electronic and print media, giving them more information on the dangers of drugs. We have been also supporting the meetings of people who use drugs in the communities, and what these people do is they run some drug use prevention programs. They also try to identify and engage people who use drugs in the communities so that they can handle the issue at community level.
But as organizations such as these play their role, the fight against drug abuse narrows down to individual commitment.
Even after suffering from the impact of drug addiction, a person can change for the better upon fully devoting to positive thoughts and deep reflection. My life bears testimony to that.
Moyera is determined to change her life for the better despite the challenges. To support this, the government launched the Zimbabwe Drug Master Plan in 2020 as a roadmap for the implementation of treatment and rehabilitation.
When we return, international news. Israel continues bombing offensive in Gaza. Death toll rises above 200. And later, sport. NTTF National Championships begin today.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Israel has launched another barrage of air raids on the Gaza Strip on Monday after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced the attacks on the Palestinian enclave would continue. The Israeli military confirmed it's killed a top commander of the Islamic Jihad armed group, Hizam Abu Babi. Explosions rocked Gaza City from north to south as Israeli fighter jets hit homes, clinics and government buildings. 212 persons, including 61 children, have been killed in Gaza since the latest violence began more than a week ago. Some 1,500 Palestinians were also wounded. Gaza's Ministry of Health has launched an appeal for help as it struggles to respond to the large numbers of injured persons seeking hospital treatment across the territory. U.S. Armed General Mark Milley warned on Monday of Palestinian destabilization beyond the Gaza Strip if the violence continued. The United Kingdom has opened up, granting a measure of freedom to some 65 million people after the gloom of a 4-month COVID-19 lockdown. Though the rules are slightly different in the United Kingdom's 4 constituent parts, restrictions were eased in England, Scotland and Wales on Monday, while they will be eased slightly later in Northern Ireland. Correspondent Nicole Johnston has the details.
It's been a long 5 months for the owners of this London Indian restaurant while they wait for the government to let them reopen again. This is a new restaurant. It was due to open in December last year, the same day the second lockdown was imposed. Now they hope that in a few hours, customers will be back.
I think from last 1 year, everyone is quite worried, myself as well. So at this time, try to stay cool and take whatever comes in front and, work hard and make sure that follow all the guidelines.
After 4 months, life is starting to come back to London's Soho district. But many people are still choosing to eat and drink outdoors. And even inside, there are restrictions. You can only meet up to 6 people and from 2 households. The hospitality industry has lost over $110 billion over the last year, and more than 8,500 hospitality businesses have closed. Now there's a wild card about the variant first identified in India. It's spreading across the UK, and the government says it could delay the next phase of reopening in June. Museums, theatres and cinemas are also reopening, and hotels and holiday accommodation. Outdoor gatherings are allowed, but they're limited to 30 people. England has been locked down 3 times since the pandemic started. Everyone hopes this is the last, especially those in the restaurant trade.
Skills and labour shortages across Australia are severely impacting business recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. As correspondent Greg Navarro tells us, this is as a result of border closures.
Demand for veterinary services in Australia has risen sharply during the pandemic. That's due in part to the explosion of pet adoptions during that time. Meeting that demand inside the University of Sydney's veterinary teaching hospital has become increasingly challenging.
We've known we've had veterinary shortages previously, but this is the first time we've really seen significant nurse shortages, particularly in the specialty and emergency area.
That's because the once reliable flow of skilled veterinary nurses coming to Australia on temporary visas has dried up since the country closed its international borders last year to slow the spread of the virus. Australia prides itself on being a migration nation. It takes in more migrants than most countries and has come to rely on that steady flow of people.
The economic impact of immigration and at the moment the absence of that inflow has been very evident in the last 12 months in the Australian economy.
That's especially true for Australia's universities, which attract more international students than any other country. The billions of dollars they helped to bring in each year before the pandemic was so important that many institutions have built their business models around that income. The agricultural industry relies heavily on people on holiday visas for seasonal work. So did the hospitality and tourism industries. And those sectors that have come to rely on skilled, temporary and permanent migrants are also feeling the impacts from closed international borders.
Well, the real consequences is just workload and staffing to be able to cope with the demand that's there.
The interesting thing is that other countries haven't closed their borders as tightly to the international flow of migrants, whether they be students or sort of temporary or permanent migrants. And that means that Australia is maybe losing a bit of competitive advantages.
Australia's government has suggested the country's international borders will likely remain closed until at least the middle of next year.
European Union's drugs regulator says the Pfizer COVID vaccine can now be stored at fridge temperature for more than a month as opposed to the 5-day limitation. The previous storage requirements for Pfizer vaccines have made them harder to use in some parts of the world. The United States approved in February storage and transport of the Pfizer vaccine at standard freezer temperatures of -15 to -25 degrees Celsius for up to 2 weeks, as opposed to between -18 to -60 degrees Celsius that it's usually required. Up next, sport. NTTF National Championships begin today. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sports, Nigeria Table Tennis Federation National Championships begin today at the Molade Okoye Thomas Hall of Testing, Balogun Stadium in Lagos. The two best table tennis players in the country will be up against each other, and that is Aziz Sholanke, who edged Taiwo Mati to win the 14th ASO Cup Championships in Abuja last week, will also be in Lagos to outweight each other for the top spot on the podium. Champion Amadi as well as Usman Okonlawon is also in the race for the top prize. Germany will recall 31-year-old Bayern Munich's forward Thomas Müller for the Euro 2020 after more than 2 years' absence from the squad. He has been listed as part of coach Joachim Löw's 26-strong group, which will be named on Wednesday. Müller, a FIFA World Cup winner in 2014, earned the last of his 100 caps against the Netherlands in a November 2018 Nations League game. And that is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great evening.